Ladies and gents, boys and girls, pronouns of your choosing, welcome back to the Firefighters Podcast. Today we are blessed by a Guinness World Record holder and returning guest to the podcast, Charlie Thomp. Charlie Thomp came on the podcast way back in episode 71 and has subsequently gone on to break the Guinness World Record, travelling the furthest distance in full fire kit, including fire boots, which is an important distinction, whilst carrying 22 kilos of breathing apparatus. He's done this over 24 hours, and today we're going to learn what it took. But before we get into it with Charlie, once again, let's hear from our amazing podcast family. First up, we have our partners of the podcast, PBI Performance Products. PBI products are protection without compromise. Now, PBI fabrics have been renowned for their unique combination of flame resistance, durability, and comfort. I have worn PBI products since starting my career 13 years now, and they are the very first choice in protection for pretty much every extreme condition, from NASA astronauts to emergency responders, the military, Formula One. So it goes without saying, we are a massive fan of PBI, and it's great to have them as a fan and a sponsor of the podcast. If you want to hear more about it, go over to pbiproducts.com or just check in the notes below. You will find a link to PBI. A big thanks once again to our long-term sponsor, William Wood Watches, who bring us, of course, our Chivalrous Collection, Bronze Edition, Valiant Collection, and coming to 2021 from the 1st of March is their new Triumph Collection. William Wood Watches is a UK-based watch manufacturer where upcycling is taken to a whole new level. William Wood are all about history on your wrist and feeling the beat of the fire service with you every step of the way. William Wood Watches has the vision to be the leading sustainable watch brand that upcycles rescue service materials for a new life, once forgotten, now reborn. Johnny always says the best part of the journey for him was seeing the watches on the wrists of people who appreciate the story, the history, the values. If you want to become part of the William Wood Watches family, head over to williamwoodwatches.com, where Johnny and the team have some beautiful, beautiful pieces to share with us. So get over, have a look, get yourself registered, and check out some of the incredible stuff at williamwoodwatches.com. Well, there you have it, boys and girls. They are the names in the frames. They are the people in the hot seats coming along on the ride for today's podcast with us. We are incredibly appreciative of our podcast partners. So without further ado, we're going to get in there with Charlie. Now, aside from the big physical challenge he's had to overcome, there's loads of lessons in here, and that's why I wanted to get Charlie back on, for the patience, the perseverance, the persistence, the preparedness, and also lots of great attributes that are not alliteration. So all joking aside, there's so many good takeaways from today's episode. So it's always lovely to touch base with the people that have been on before, seeing if they practice what they preach, seeing if the rubber meets the road, seeing if their words match their actions. Are they walking the walk, or are they just talking the talk? Charlie is one of those guys that is always walking the walk. So without further ado, let's get in there with Charlie, and I will see you crazy cats on the other side. Shabba.
Yo.
Hello, mate.
How are we?
Oh, all the better for seeing your handsome smiley face. How are you, brother?
Not too bad getting there.
Mate, you're looking good. You're looking happy. You're looking a bit more recovered and a little bit less sore and rashy than the last photos you sent me.
Oh, well, I can definitely tell you that 90% of the rashes have gone down.
Oh, mate, that was brutal, that was.
It was ridiculous.
Was that surprising? Because when you said it, and I was speaking to my missus about it, and I was like, it's the things you don't think about that then become sometimes the biggest things, if that makes sense. It's like you can plan so much for the things that you think are going to be the hurdles, and then stuff like that, it looked really sore.
Yeah, I mean, I've been doing like half marathons and maybe just over that with the same kit on, same clothing underneath, and not one sort of friction burn or whatever on my body. And then I take my jacket off at the end of that, and it's literally like someone's just scolded me all over my body.
Did you take your jacket off at all during it? Which sounds stupid, but you know when you were doing your stops and stuff, because there's like, I suppose there's a thought process around how much do you ramp down to ramp back up. Do you know what I mean? Because you don't want to completely like chill out when you have your stops and stuff like that, but also, you know, how much did you ramp down before you went back up, if that makes sense, each time when you had your stops at the stations and when you had your breaks?
There was no ramping down, but that's
okay.
Unfortunately, that's the protocol and the rules and regulations of Guinness. They said if any part of the PPE, which they classed as the helmet, jackets, trousers, boots, or the BA, was taken off, that would be it.
Okay, so there was no loosening straps and sort of, let me just readjust this and let me just take that off and have a shower.
I opened up the collar part. I unzipped that slightly just to open up, but that was literally it. I undid the chin strap of the helmet.
So other than that, you were no real knowing. Is it a little bit like one of them feelings like you're not sure if you're bleeding or if you've pissed yourself? Sometimes you get that feeling, when something's wrong, you're like, I'm not sure what I'm feeling, but it's a feeling of some form. I'm not sure if I'm really sweaty or if I pooed myself. And you're a little bit like that.
Well, getting to like the 30 mile mark, I knew I was like having major chafage. And it got to a point where I was thinking, is that sweat or am I chafing that much? It's blood.
Is it blood now? Yeah. You know what reminds me of? Remember that episode in Friends where Ross is trying to get them pants back on and he can't get them back on? Have you seen that one?
With the leather pants.
Yeah, and then the leather pants. And then he's like, he puts lotion on and then he puts baby powder on or something, doesn't he? And then like you wouldn't know if you'd make it better or if you'd make it worse. I'm just thinking of you, like when you're feeling that chafage, are you kind of saying to people like, oh, has anybody got some Vaseline? I might just ram something down there, or like I don't know if I want to do cream, or did you just be like, you know what, just it hurts, but if I'm bleeding, it's only 24 hours. I'm not going to do this for 10 days, So was it kind of just, it really sucks, but I'm just going to carry on?
Pretty much, yeah, because there's nothing I could have done without taking them off.
Yeah.
So it was suck it up, buttercup, and crack on.
So I mean, typical me. I apologise. We've kind of jump head first into it there. But last time we spoke, first of all, welcome back to the podcast, Charlie Thompson. How are you, brother?
I am good.
Last time
I'm better now.
Yeah, I mean, you've become a world record holder since we last spoke, which is pretty surreal, isn't it? I mean, you have done...
It's still sort of registering in the head. It doesn't make sense.
It is weird. It's a pretty epic thing, though. Do you know what I mean? And to be fair, you actually picked, with all due respect, you've picked quite a good one. There's some crap records out there. There are some really crap records out there. And you're like, really?
I know. I think I've seen something like, there's a world record for like stacking 5 M&Ms on top of each other. See, that seems less brutal.
Yeah. There was one, I spoke to a guy the other day, and he did 24-hour rugby game. I think he's done a few of them. I think a mutual friend of ours to do with the Firefighters charity. And he said they did the whole thing, but one of the cameras hadn't worked or something like that. So when they came to the end of the challenge, they realised they had to do it all again. So they had to do a whole nother 24-hour rugby game, and they did it like a week later or something like that. And then he said, like 2 days after they'd finished their challenge, he was at some Sunday rugby game, and a bunch of kids broke the Guinness World Record for the number of passes in a minute. And he said it took them like a minute, obviously. And he was like, it was so ridiculous. They're going to get into Guinness World Records, and there's like a bunch of 10-year-olds. And he found it really hard to sort of support them because he'd just done 48 hours worth of rugby. And yeah, this is a thing. Not all records are born equal, but if people live on Mars and they are unfamiliar with the heroic attempt that you have now completed, some were probably apprehensive and some maybe didn't think you were going to do it, but you have nailed it, and there's video proof and everything.
Yeah.
What did you do?
Well, it was down as the greatest distance covered in full firefighter kit within 24 hours.
Boom.
And I managed 50 miles.
50 miles. Now, a really, 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 really super important thing that I want to, and people will think it's not a big thing, but it was massive. And I'll tell you what, we'll put some of those photos as some of the episode sound bites for this, because for me, and you'll know far, far better than any of us, it was the fire boots. Because you see a lot of people do stuff in fire kit, myself included, and you're like, oh yeah, I've done a workout in some fire kit. I've ran some stairs in some fire kit. You were wearing trainers. Do you know what I mean? That's so often the case. Whereas yours, you were wearing actual, not like, with all due respect, not like firefighter competition worthy fire boots that maybe someone once wore operationally, maybe somewhere, probably not. Whereas yours, this is your operational fire boots.
Yeah.
Talk to us about that. That brings a whole different dynamic in there.
Yeah, I mean, well, there's no giving them, put it that way. And I actually wore them on an incident probably about 3 days prior.
There you go. So these are your actual boots.
It's literally the actual boot.
Yeah, and for people that are familiar or unfamiliar with fire boots, a lot of them don't have like a really nice lacing mechanism, because obviously these are designed to be worn in property fires. With all due respect to the people that make them, they still are predominantly glorified welly boots. Yeah,
pretty much. Just a little bit thicker and a little bit softer inside, but they're still heavy. They're still very uncomfortable over a longer period of time. Yeah. There's no laces. It's just a pair of boots that they say comfortable but quick to get on.
Yes, I was about to say, the idea is they're not super snug, because they're quick to get on and quick to get off, and they allow a lot of freedom of movement, which is good because it allows a bit of an air pocket when you're inside a fire, and your feet don't get as hot, versus if you had a tight leather boot on, your feet would heat up really, really fast. But the downside of that is when your foot is constantly moving around, when you ever find yourself trying to run or certainly trying to walk over a long distance, they're just flapping and flopping around. And when you sent me the photos of your feet, I thought initially it was like loads and loads of sweat. I mean, they looked funky as hell anyway, but you had that there was one blister. I say a blister. It was I bet it was 70% of the bottom of your foot, at least. We're gonna put the photo in here. It looks like you've been swimming for about 3 days, but that is one massive blister. That looked emotional, to be honest.
Well, it felt it as well. I mean, the one on the heel that pretty much covered the entire heel. That wasn't so much the most painful one. It was the one that covered pretty much all of the toes, and then there was a part of it which is in between, like the big toe and the next toe, and that was on both feet. And around, where was I on that one? Snakes Pass, going through the North Peak District. Both of those on each foot popped at the same time. Literally, I was just going over a tiny slight gradient in the ground.
Did you feel
and they both popped. Oh yeah, it was like I stood on nails.
Oh shit! Now, this is kind of like, because for a lot of things like this, you want to try and preempt the failure, or not the failure, but you want to try and preempt the walls and preempt the barriers and go, all right, how am I going to navigate through them? How am I going to this? How am I going to that? You were always going to get blisters. Do you know what I mean? You were always going to get them.
Yeah.
Was there an aspect of limiting how much training you had to do for it? Because even in the training, you were going to pick up blisters. You were doing a lot of miles, you were doing a lot of stuff on the treadmill and stuff like that. Did you go into it with any blisters? Because you must have thought, I know I'm going to get them at some point, and there's only so much, wearing pads and extra pair of socks and all this sort of stuff. How did the training, I know we spoke about it a little bit before, but how did the training go for it? Were you struggling with blisters already?
Well, the aim was to get the blisters at the start of training.
Okay.
So then I'd know where like the major rubbing points would be on the boots themselves.
I like style.
So when I do get the blisters, I'd then wrap them up, wait for them to obviously either die or pop, and then I'd get the tincture oil, which would then sort of almost act as a second layer of skin on that. And then after doing that, get used to the oil for a few months, because I was probably training around 3-4 months prior to the actual walk itself. And then put on like a thin layer of, almost like a glove sock, where each toe has its own little sock that goes over it, and that just reduces the friction.
Yeah, they're a great shout. I used to have a pair of them when I was a kid. Have you seen the shoe versions of them? I know we get a bit off.
Yeah,
have you ever had a pair?
I think they're called. Yeah, I've never tried a pair.
I really want some.
I don't know if I want to.
I feel like I do. But I actually fractured my foot about 3 weeks ago, and I'm pretty confident he's still bloody playing issues with it now. I was walking in the Lake District, and I went over a really, really pointy rock, unsurprisingly, in a slate mine, and I heard a big crack. And I thought that's too loud for it to be my foot. It really bloody hurt. Really, really hurt. But I thought that's too loud to be my foot. I'm pretty sure I just cracked the stone because I'm a big, heavy guy or whatever. And then for like the last 3 weeks, it's just been grinding me. So I went and got it x-rayed. It's just a little hairline fracture, but literally where the bottom of my sole of my shoe had just flexed around it and too much pressure through a tiny little point. And I'd cracked it. And that's the kind of thing, to get off on tangent, is the thing that puts me off shoes like that, because they're like, you wear them instead of normal shoes, you can do them in any terrain.
Yeah.
That does not going to provide the sole of my foot much platform, if you know what I mean. And I get that it would probably make my foot a bit stronger over time, but going over terrain like what you were going over, you know, lots of roads, lots of hills, lots of rocks, I don't think that sort of thing's going to work, is all I'm thinking. But they look bloody cool. You know, if you're a BJJ fighter, or you know, you do a lot of indoor stuff or a lot of rock climbing, I bet they're a right scream. But they're probably not going to be the day-to-day. Now, becoming a world record holder, pretty intense. We've done 50 miles, but you weren't alone. You did have some pretty incredible people join you along. Some amazing guys and girls. And I was looking at your lives and I was looking at all that sort of stuff. And I know we haven't got time to sort of shout everybody out, but was there anybody that came along and surprised you? And was there any kind of memories from it where you thought, you know what, if I hadn't had that person with me at that moment, that would have been a bit of a ball breaker?
Yeah, there's a couple actually. Now I know he got in contact with us about a month prior for support, and that was Bradley Skeet, the British boxer, and he turned up at where was it? Stocksbridge Fire Station. So that was a bit of a surprise, and he actually walked about 4 or 5 miles with us.
Oh, bless him!
So nice. So that was a massive surprise.
Are you still mentally functionable then? Are you still able to have a conversation, if you know what I mean? Because when somebody like that turns up, it's quite a nice surprise, and it probably adds a different sort of tempo to the conversation if you've got anything to give, or if you're just sort of like head down. He might have showed up and gone, hey, I want to spend a few hours with Charlie, it's going to be a right laugh, he seems like a cool guy, we're going to have a right scream. And if he just turns up and you're like, head down and just marching through, did you still manage to maintain this lovely, happy, gregarious, optimistic Charlie that we have in front of us today, or was the moments where you were no fun to be around?
Of course, no. Yeah, I took a few minutes anyway at the station to meet that crew that were on, and I also took a few minutes just to have a decent conversation with him. So yeah, really, really nice guy. And after that, we both just made our way down. I think he's quite good mates with my sister, so my sister joined me as well, Jenny.
Bless her.
And so we just had a pretty decent conversation for about 4 or 5 miles. So it was just nice to sort of, realise, there is that people out there that you probably just don't know that are actually there just to purely support you. Yeah. It's quite humbling, really.
Yeah, because you're doing something that's it's pretty incredibly challenging, but it's a big thing to give money and to donate and stuff like that. But for him to actually show up was massive.
Yeah.
Who else?
Oh, massive,
your sister and obviously a few members of the family. Did you manage to see all the operational crews when you sort of bounced from station to station? Was the reception good?
Yeah, I mean, well, obviously, I probably got to Rotherham about 5 o'clock in the morning, so I wasn't going to be waking them up.
I'd have done that. I'd have totally been on the tannoy.
Ring the front doorbell. I'm here.
Kit on for parade, kit on for drill. Down we come, fellas. Let's throw some ladders up, celebrate the finish.
The only crew that were really there was Stocksbridge, because I made them that in a decent time. I think I got to there about 12 in the afternoon. So they were actually there outside on the truck with the lights on, waiting for us, brought us some water, so that was really nice of them. And Stockport, actually, when I got there, they weren't there. They'd literally just been called out to a hazmat job, but I stayed there anyway because that's where my finishing point was at that time.
Yeah.
And I just waited there. They had some, what was it now? I think it was like Thai green chicken curry waiting for us.
Good lads. I thought you were going to
they were on the ball.
You to get to every station and some idiot, like, with all due respect, they'd all have cakes ready or something stupid like that, and you'd be like, that's lovely, but seriously not what you wanted to be snacking down. I did actually write down nutrition. I wanted to ask you, how did you plan for that? What was your thought process? What did you eat running up to it and during the challenge?
Well, this is going to sound quite strange seemed as though it was 22 hours and 20 odd minutes. The whole trip round, I was having either wine gums or gummy bears, and I think I went through maybe 2 chicken and salad wraps. That was it.
Really?
Chicken and salad wraps. I didn't want anything too stodgy. But it was the first hour which was a bit of a scare for me, because at midnight we set off and it was so humid, it was unreal. Yeah. I was like, this is hotter than usual.
Yeah, it's a BA.
So yeah, I thought, right, okay, well, I'll space the food and I'll space the drink out a little bit. I'll have a drink every 20 minutes, or when I need a drink, because the drink was more important. And then the food I'd have every half an hour. In that hour, I could not think of anything worse than food.
Really?
I was going down big time in that hour.
Jesus. So you were like,
yeah,
I've prepped all this, I'm going to fall flat on my face in the first hour. Is it just panic and adrenaline? I don't know what's wrong.
Well, that's what it is, I think.
For something? Is it, am I sick? Do I feel weird? What is it? Is everybody else feeling this? Do you know what I mean?
Well, that's exactly the thoughts that were going through my head. I was thinking, what is going on? I'm an hour in and I'm already going down.
Yeah.
But I think it was the combination of the humidity and the nerves and the adrenaline kicking in. So I think after that wave, I thought I managed to take a little bite of my chicken wrap, and I had a flapjack that the guys who over at Four Seasons Kitchen had made for us. They do all the nutrition for us.
They look great.
So I managed to have a little corner of that, and that got me through a bit. And then I think I hit another wall at 5 hours. Same sort of thing, but I knew I was losing a lot of salts because I stopped sweating for quite a bit.
Really?
And obviously, if you realise if you're not sweating, then something's going on big time.
I was going to say you're quite far down the dehydration scale if you've stopped sweating.
Massively.
I was going to say, were you doing Duralights? Were you doing electrolytes and stuff like that? How soon did you think that you needed to start bringing them in? Was it an hour in, 2 hours in, 3 hours in? Because if you're like me, I mean, we'll say it again, you're wearing full fire kit, you pretty much sweat as soon as you put the stuff on, and it's like death by 1,000 cuts. You're not running at any point, you're not hauling anything at any point, but this is not a sustainable situation. Do you know what I mean? Your body is losing power, it's losing strength consistently and progressively. It's slowly killing you, pretty much. So you need to keep putting it in.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, I was switching between the Wild Hydrate drinks that we get. They do 2 types. They do the electrolytes, and then they do the protein. So I was switching between water, electrolytes, protein, water, electrolytes, protein. Yes. But even that wasn't sort of catching up any of the amount of salts that I was losing. I was literally just squeezing the cuff of my jacket, and it was pouring out like someone had stuck a hose down my arm. So Dialytes came on quickly after that, and they are a godsend.
Yeah,
I swear by them. Take them everywhere you go.
So just expand, because I think people are familiar with electrolytes, but certainly from my experiences, Dialytes people are less familiar with. So just hit us with a little bit. I'm not asking you to be a graduate nutritionist. We'll probably butcher this to death and people will laugh when they're listening to it. But give us the elevator pitch on what they're for.
So Dialyte top up the salts that you lose in your body. So for instance, if you really, really sweat a lot during a long workout, or as gruesome as it sounds, if you're ill and you've got diarrhea, you take the Dialytes, because essentially your body needs salts and sugars in its body. And obviously the less salt in your body, the less you're going to sweat, the more you're going to overheat. Your body's going to heat up with inside. So if you take that Dialyte, that's going to top up those salts and sugars in your body.
You see this a lot with calm marathon runners and stuff, don't you? That's the way you start having bags and bags of salt tablets. Boring, sad bit of personal trainer information. Do you know the old saying, a man is worth his salt?
Yeah.
That's where that comes from. So back in the Roman days, when, similar to yourself, comparing you to Roman gods here, they used to march the empire, because they would go, all the soldiers and the warriors and stuff would march for miles and miles carrying all of their gear. And it wasn't necessarily that they weren't getting fed enough or they didn't have access to fresh water, but they weren't getting enough salts and they were getting sick. So salt being the magic mineral, the amount of massive array of minerals that are in, great salts. So they would pay a man in salt. They wouldn't necessarily pay them in any of the, because it's a bit like, something's worth of whatever you say it is. So gold, shillings, animals, you could pay people in whatever you wanted to. And at times, these soldiers would get paid in salt. And that's where the phrase came from. A man is worth his salt. Because that was the thing. They'd be sweating constantly and they'd get there and they'd just be weak. It wouldn't be weak because they hadn't eaten enough. They wouldn't be weak because they hadn't drank enough. They realised they weren't getting their salts. And that's kind of where the whole thing originated for. So we've got, I love what you said about sort of not being too overburdened in having too much food as well, because you kind of want to keep bouncing off that red line. I mean, you can't live off wine gums, but you're burning energy so fast that having something that is going to take up a lot of blood for 4 or 5 hours worth of digestion first is going to be a little bit of a waste of time, because you actually might go down before that stuff has made it into your system. So you're constantly taking on fast sugars. What did you eat before it?
Do you know what? I can't remember. I think I just had one of my prep meals. I think it was something like a spag bol. I didn't really eat much, like a few hours beforehand.
Yeah.
I had a brew and a big bottle of lemon water.
Yeah,
it's got the lemons inside.
Love it.
I just drank as much of that as possible. But yeah, I think I had just like a spag bol, and then just left it at that.
Yeah,
lots of water.
Did you ever think about not doing it any of the days running up to it?
No, that was to me that was never an option.
Yeah.
Once I set my mind on it, that was it. It was going to be done. And if it was going to be done in pain, then it was going to be done in pain. But it was never an option in my head. It was just, as soon as I feel or think, oh, I'm not going to do it, then I feel that seed's then going to grow in the back of your mind if you allow it.
Yeah.
If you don't allow it in your head, then it's never going to be an option. So therefore, the only way of doing it is just to get it done. So you've got 24 hours to get it done.
Don't bring it in that realm of possibility. It's not even one of the doors that's sort of open for availability. You never thought about, because it wouldn't make you a lesser person if you hadn't have done it. There's a lot of people out there that just get so scared. You hear about boxers that can't come out of the locker room, and they're the odds-on favourite. Everyone thinks they're going to win. They've had amazing training. They've had a great camp. They're a fantastic fighter, but it's just the pressure of the event. It's just having everybody there. I mean, think back to David Goggins when he did his first pull-up challenge, and he'd put it on national TV. Millions and millions of people had seen it, and they were filming it in the studio. And I think he only made it. I don't know what it was. I think he did like 1,000 pull-ups, which is still incredible, but it was about 1,400 pull-ups short of what he needed to do, and it just completely blew out. He was just scrambling. He sent people out to go and get cheeseburgers and stuff because he just felt himself, a little bit like when you were saying there in your first hour, just felt himself going down. Something just wasn't right, and there was too much lighting, there was too much energy, there was too much anticipation. And similar to yourself, you've spoken to a lot of people, you come on podcasts and all this sort of stuff. You could physically do it, but the mental game, how much of it was a mental game for you?
Quite a lot, really. I mean, I'd say a good 90% of it.
Yeah.
For me, it was like, especially, I'll always revert back to the hardest hour, which was that first hour. For me, I was really worried, thinking, I'm an hour in here and my body is going down. But I tried to use those negative thoughts as fuel.
Yeah.
Thinking, come on, there's a reason why you're doing this.
Yeah.
You've done things which are just as hard, maybe not as long, but just as hard. You've gone further than this on a training day.
Yeah.
And you felt fine. So I tried to use, especially I had Fran's mouth in my ear all the time saying, "Come on, get a grip," which is what I needed. I just needed that little mental boost.
I was going to say, did you have anybody? Who did you share it with at that point? Were you speaking these thoughts aloud? Were you saying to people, "Look, I'm not sure what I'm feeling here. Was this a battle you were having internally, or were you talking to the people with you?"
Both, really, both. In that hour, Chess, obviously my wife, she was with me, and she was like, "Charlie, get a grip," which is exactly what I needed for her to say.
Yeah.
And even I was going, What are you doing? Come on, you're an hour in. Yeah, it's hot, but just get a grip. But like I said, it was the adrenaline, and I don't usually get that adrenaline when I'm doing the training.
No.
And she was saying, "Listen, there's a greater reason why you're doing this. So keep that in the back of your mind." And the adrenaline came down. I started to feel a little bit better. I managed to even stomach a little bit of chicken wrap. And that actually made me feel miles better as well. Yeah. I think it was just a combination of all that put together with that massive part of your mind saying, either you get a grip or this is going to be this is going to be embarrassing.
Yeah, and that's it, isn't it? There's a massive amount of social accountability that can most often, ideally help people rise to the event, but we forget how much energy is taken away from that mental capability. I mean, that they hook people up to all sorts of machines and they measure problem solving, how much energy your body uses problem solving, and then they measure things like waiting in a line for a roller coaster, and how much energy people burn waiting in line for a roller coaster because of the nerves, because of that anticipation. Your mind absolutely sucks energy, and when people are nervous and people are scared, that's why. And I love how you articulate it in that way, because it's so important for people to appreciate that. If you don't prepare for that mental side of it, and I suppose indirectly you've done a lot of mental prep, because like you say, you've done a lot of challenging stuff in the past. You're very well acquainted with suffering and in the gym and out there on the tracks and the field and all that sort of stuff. So yeah. You've done a lot of mental conditioning, probably accidentally in the past, but you really can thrash through a lot of energy. But you say sort of that second or third hour, you felt like you started to get into a bit of a flow. Yeah.
So once I'd sort of got a grip of myself mentally, the nerves started to come down. I was feeling miles better. I could actually think about, okay, maybe I can start having a bit of food here.
Yeah.
And as soon as that happened, because I love my food. If I don't think about food, then there's something wrong. I started getting into the flow, and I was walking fine. My speed went back up again. I think it dropped down to something like 1.7, 1.8 miles an hour. And then after I went past that flow, it flew straight back up to like 2.7, 2.8, which is where I wanted to be.
I was going to say, did you what was your pacing in mind? What did you need to be at for your pacing?
I wanted to be around that 2.7 to 3 mile an hour. That would have got me to past Stockport for around the 7:30, 8 o'clock mark. Yeah. So I would have been within that 19, 20 hour period of getting there. I think it's only like an hour from from Stockport to the final station. But there's a lot of things that you've got to put up with as well on that route. So the inclines, the declines, the heat, the weather. The weather was actually perfect for me. It was cooler in the day than it was at night.
Really? Oh, that's good.
Yeah. Just the route was ridiculous.
Did you build in? It sounded like you did. You prepared for a little bit of failure, and what I mean by that is, so you set your pacing with ideally a 2 or 3 hour window of shit, if you know what I mean. If something went wrong, or if it went down again, and how much did you build in? How much of a buffer? And do you think that's essential to do, or if you did it again, would you do it differently?
I originally wanted that 2-3 hour buffer at the end, because if I slowed down enough, or if something that would have happened, I would have still been able to make up that time. Obviously, you can say, I preempted loads of things in my training, but on the day, you never know what's going to happen.
No.
If I was to do it again, what would I change? Maybe the route. There was parts of the route that were quite ridiculous, like the incline for the longest periods of time. Honestly, I think this is just going to be uphill for the rest of the day.
Yeah.
And it was for a good
You just feel
few hours.
This doesn't seem necessary. This is we've made this harder than we needed it to be.
Yeah. I think someone said, why didn't you just do laps around your gym? I was like, yeah, it would have been a better idea, but it would have been so boring.
Yeah, it would have been. That would have been a challenge in itself.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, if there was anything I was going to change, it was probably going to be elements of the route. I wouldn't want to change the entire route, just probably the parts where I thought, right, well, this must be what it's like walking Everest.
Yeah.
Just completely like that. Just near enough vertical. Honestly, the speed dropped right down to about 1.5 in some points, just because of the inclines.
Yeah.
And but it's done now. And if it was going to be done again, then yeah, do the route I did.
I was going to say, do you think there is some? We're not necessarily. I don't want to encourage anybody to go out tomorrow and smash your record, but do you think there's windows for if you'd have done it differently? Do you think there's a bit more in the tank for you personally?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, definitely.
Cool.
I think you've got to think like that. I mean, there's always room for improvement. For anything that you do, you've always got to sit back and sort of go over all the things that went well, the things that didn't go well, and what you do differently. And I think if there was room for improvement, then of course, yeah, your walk's going to improve.
Yeah.
But I won't be doing it anytime soon. I know that.
I think you see that with, like, say, national players or people that do stuff on a big stage on a regular basis. I always use the phrase, less impressed, more involved. I've got it written several places. It's probably end up getting it as a tattoo at some point, because the first time you experience something big like that, it can be just so overwhelming. Do you know what I mean? The nerves,
it's so daunting, yeah.
So daunting. And even if, like, I've played in games against national and international level players at certain fields and stuff like that, and sometimes you meet these people and you're like, holy shit, this person's amazing and I'm going to play against them. Or, you meet somebody and you're just even sharing a conference with them or something like that, and you're so impressed that you don't give the best version of yourself because the moment steals some of that from you. And it's making that transition. I always say less impressed, more involved, because the second or third time round, it's always like business as well. And you must think this, you guys are successful business owners. You look at a gym or whatever and you're like, what an amazing gym. Oh my God, I can't believe they've done that. How have they done that? It's all great.
Yeah.
The kit's so amazing. The floor looks good. The members love it. The website's this, the app, blah, 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 blah. And going from that, being impressed, and then to being involved, and you're like, well, actually, let's just break that apart. Let's pull back the curtain. Let's peek behind the illusion, because, the phrase, quiet like a duck and then paddle like fuck or whatever it is underneath is often how a lot of businesses look, isn't it? On the surface, oh yeah, mate. On the surface, it looks graceful like a duck, and then underneath, the legs are just going. That's how most businesses are running, and that's cool. And we're all kind of just making stuff up as we go along. That's how a lot of it's going. But being more involved in it and breaking the bits apart, rather than looking at your challenge and going, oh my God, 24 hours, 50 miles, wow, I know that fire kit, breaking up the pieces and going, I can do that. I mean, let's talk about Guinness. So Guinness World Records in themselves, How was that? Because I've heard from several people that is not as easy as it sounds to get the attention of those individuals, first and foremost, and to navigate the myriad of guidelines and restrictions and everything.
Yeah. Well, they stipulate the rules very, very clearly. And, literally down to like a fine toothpick, they will go into depth. But that's what makes Guinness World Records.
That's it.
You
want to come and play with our ball, you've got to follow our rules. So this is our game. You want to get your name in it.
Yeah.
you got to, we jump, you say how high.
That's it. I mean, they give about a 30-page guideline as to, what they require.
Yeah.
As standard for a Guinness World Record. This is the evidence that you need to supply. So everything from 2 master clocks to 2 witnesses minimum, they have a period of how often that witness needs to rotate to get rest, and how many witnesses, so like I said, like a bare minimum of 2, what visual evidence they need, so pictures with timestamps and stuff like that. If it's going to be video,
did you have to have the whole thing recorded, or did they allow you to? How did you have to evidence the fact that it was you and the distance that you did, and what did you have any fears about? Because this is like the military operation bit, because it's like, if you don't get the evidence, you ain't going to get the tick in the box, and it's going to be impressive, and you've raised a lot of money, and that is wonderful, but it will feel a little bit, of like you've not quite got it if you didn't quite get it. So did you assign that task to somebody else, or did you try and lead the evidence portfolio yourself?
It was a bit of both, really. So obviously the two people that were on the support wagon, which was Francesca and Jeff. Jeff was like who co-owns the gym with Chess. He was in charge of the support wagon. So every half an hour, I put an alarm on my phone, and that would then indicate to me, right, okay, we need to do a timestamp and a master clock picture of myself holding the clock with the timestamp underneath it.
Wow.
Every half an hour. I mean, we could have gone every hour, but I just thought, just do it every half an hour.
Yeah.
And it actually, mentally, it made time fly.
Yeah.
Because next thing I know, the alarm's going off. Wow, it's been half an hour already.
Yeah.
Geez, okay. And then I'm looking at, they also require the measurement to be in kilometres for some reason.
Yeah, I saw that as well, which I think it's just old, isn't it? They don't adopt the metric system.
Yeah.
It's not,
so yeah, I mean, we had the sheet. We made like a little Excel spreadsheet. So times from midnight all the way up to midnight the next day.
Yeah.
So every half an hour, I put the time, the distance, and the location, which is the northings and eastings. Which is why they needed the timestamp, and it would sort of correlate. The picture would correlate with the distance that you've done on the map as well. And on the map, it would have the pre-route anyway plotted in. So that's the sort of evidence that they're after. They've just said as long as you can provide that visual evidence and obviously the witness statements from your 2 witnesses.
Yeah, what did they have to write then? How elaborate did that need to be?
It's weird. It's not really that elaborate. It's just to say, I witnessed Charlie do such thing at such a time. My rest period was this. My working activity period was this. Giving the times and the dates and stuff like that. So as long as they had those statements in, and then your cover letter as to what you were doing, where you were going, the routes you were going. That was pretty much what Guinness was after. But as long as they had it all, which matched and married everything, they were happy with it.
Yeah.
So and then it's just a 12-week wait.
12 weeks. And are we still in that phase now?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you've submitted everything. How long ago did you submit it?
Not so long ago, to be honest, because with the technical issues that we had to try and sort of get everything married up somehow. So I was going through like, the little information data stuff that you get in your pictures.
Oh,
it gives you a time and location on that. So we had to fall back on that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think confident.
Good.
So we should see. I got in touch with them a few days ago actually, and they came back and says, "Listen, don't panic. As long as you can show us some sort of evidence that you've done it, then it will be acceptable." So
did you contact them via email?
Fingers crossed.
Or phone.
It's almost, it's like if you go on your profile on the actual Guinness World Records website, they've got a contact little box that you put in, like a comments box.
Yeah.
You fire a message off to them and they'll get back to you 12 days later.
Nice.
So,
and I think I'm bad at getting back to you.
Thanks for waiting 12 days. I only asked one question.
Now, obviously, I'm selfishly asking all of this because I'm tomorrow I start my official training for the 24-hour vehicle pull world record. Inspired partially by yourself, mate. And a whole bunch of other guests. We've done stuff in the past. Last year we pulled an ambulance, raised $5,500 or whatever it was for the NHS, and I see people like you, and I see people, out there, some incredible beasts, really putting themselves to it, and I just got that itch. I've got that buzz. I want to.
Mate, I'm buzzing for you. I'm excited.
Put your money where your mouth is, and get in the ring with yourself, mate, because it's incredible. What you've done is awesome. I think people that can should, but now that I'm even just talking to you about it here now, I'm feeling that itch, and I'm feeling that nervousness. To be honest with you, nervousness that I haven't had in years. I haven't had that since I was competing, even, to be honest, even the British Firefighter Challenge stuff, as cool as that was, won gold in that, whatever it was 2 years ago, it didn't feel as nerve-wracking because there was no massive accountability. Something like this, and that's why I admire people like you, you're the only person doing it. Yes, there's a massive team behind you, but it really is all on you. So, I'm starting this training now. I'm giving myself sort of a 10-month window to get people and partners and companies that can donate, and also just to get the miles under my belt and actually put a little bit of weight on. So I need to pull a 1.5 ton vehicle for 24 hours. And the guy that currently holds the record is some sort of Yugoslavian blooming Terminator, basically. He's had, honestly, I think he's actually partially funded or completely funded by the government. So he's pulled trains that he's had like completely wrapped and designed for him, that have got, I don't know, so there's a lot of money going into something here, and he's pulled aeroplanes.
Because that's fair, isn't it?
I know.
That's normal.
I think he had I think they closed down a shopping centre for 24 hours, and he pulled the vehicle around the shopping centre, which actually sounds like a great idea. Now I say that because it's a flat floor. There's no resistance. There's no effect from the weather. You're basically in control of everything. I can't think of many shopping centres in the UK that, maybe during COVID it would have been a great idea. There'd been nobody in there.
Yeah.
But, so 10 months, I've got to put some weight on because I've spent like the last 8 years losing about 6 stone since I was a massive, big, strong man, bloody. Now I'm a feeble creature compared to what I once was. So, that endurance side of it, doing some training. So training tips, dude, come on. Big endurance events, training tips. What do I need to be thinking about? And what do other people need to be thinking about? Because there's lots of people going after these. There might be somebody going for your record right now. That's good. This is the scary thing, isn't it? Because I thought this, just to take it back for a second, there was a woman last year who went for this 24-hour vehicle pull record. I've only just learned of her. I learned of her like 4 or 5 days ago. And I was researching. Okay. And she'd got a local Sitner dealership or something like that to give her a vehicle. She trained for like 6 months. Okay. And she, for about 3 weeks before she did it, this Yugoslavian guy did it. And he broke the record by like 10 times. The previous record was like 4 kilometers. And he did 30. I think he did 30 or 33 kilometers. So he just completely blew it out of the water. And this was 3 weeks out from when she was planning to break the other record. So basically, she tried to do it, but I think she made it like 5 hours in, and then she got horrendous cramps, and she went in a bath, and then she had a masseuse, and it just ended in a car crash, I think. But not in a literal sense, but, I just think it didn't go very well. What I mean is, there'll be people going for it all the time. People might hear yours right now, and they go, you know what, 50 miles? Bet I can smash that. How do you train for it? How would you recommend other people train for it?
First of all, smartly. Okay. Really think about, the mental aspect of it. Are you 100% mentally capable of putting yourself in that pressure? And if the answer is yes, then take it step by step. I decided, right, you know what? The start of my walks, I'll just do it in normal kit, normal training gear. I won't go out running marathons or anything like that. Loosen off my body, and then every now and then I'd have the layers on, and then it would be a case of, okay, I've got my fire kit on now, I'll put a Bergen on my back so I can get used to the weight. Now, I started off with a Bergen that's heavier than what the set was. I get on a treadmill, so I'd break in the boots a little bit more. So every now and then I'm just chipping away at the intensity of my training. Yeah. Always maintaining a massive. I've got to have a positive head every time I do my training. I've always got to be thinking,
come out of the
100%,
session and think,
I've got to do this.
I've got it. Yeah. Don't overexert yourself to the point where you're like, you drop into that valley. You know, Jamie Joe Howe is competing in the Mr. Olympias now, and he used to be he's a firefighter from the UK. He owns a gym around here, and he always says, when you're training, you want to dig yourself into a hole, but never dig a hole so deep that you can't climb out of it. Do you know what I mean? You need to be able to climb back out of it to start again. Otherwise, you just get so broken down, it's just not sustainable. So your training, did you ever actually do a 24-hour walk in fire kit prior to the event?
Never done that.
You never did it?
No,
so
never.
What was the longest walk that you did?
The longest walk I've ever done? Well, I've done a marathon before.
Yeah.
But that's literally the furthest distance I've ever done.
Yeah. How
in kit,
how far was, I'm going to say in your kit?
16 miles.
16 miles?
Yeah.
That was the furthest walk you did prior to this. And how long did you walk in your kit for prior to doing the event?
5-6 hours.
Really? So you'd only done less than a quarter of the distance. And how much did you... What was the thought... Because I agree with you, because when people are saying to me, a couple of people that I've got on the team with me have said, look, I need to see you walk, pull a truck for 18 hours for me to have confidence that you're going to do it for 24. I'm like, I'm not going to pull for 18 hours just on a training pool. I said, there's no value to be gained from that. Personally, I don't think. I'm going to work my way up to doing 12-hour training sessions, and then that'll be it. I kind of feel like that's going to be long enough. Do you even think that's too long? I don't know.
Well, I looked at it as though if I can get a quarter of the way, then all I need to do is that 4 times. But I broke that. I've got 4 months to do that. Yeah. So I did a quarter of the way, and then I just do that distance again, like later on. So I'll go back down in the distance side of things, and then I'll work my way back up to that distance again.
Yeah.
So as long as I know I can do that consecutively every couple of weeks, then I was going to be able to do that full distance. So that's what I had in my mindset, and I stuck with that for pretty much the rest of the training gear, the training time. So as long as I knew I could get a quarter of the way, I just thought, right, just do that 4 times.
And then you just
I'm happy with that.
Just basic maths. 4 times that, and then I'll be done, won't it? Now, I want to wrap it up, mate. I know the Just Giving page is still open. So you've got this 12-week window before we get the big well done, the big high five, the big celebration, get your name in the book and all that sort of stuff. But what's next for you? What are you thinking? What's tickling your pickle?
Honestly, right now, nothing. Just going to crack on with work. Obviously, we're coming really close to the end of the adoption process, so
that is massive,
I'm just focusing on that now.
I'm so, in the least condescending way as possible, I'm so proud of you. We looked into doing adoption, and we looked into respite and stuff like that, and it's a minefield just applying for it. It's like an 18-month thing. It's some people it's shorter, but some people it's even longer than that. It takes ages to do it. I think that's absolutely incredible, mate. So you've got good self-awareness. You're giving this time back to the family now, because everybody has to make a lot of sacrifice. People forget, for you to do something like a world record or anything big in your life, start a company, it's never just you. It's a whole team behind you. It's a very patient and understanding partner whilst you're out, walking and marching and filming ourselves and talking on podcasts and all this sort of stuff. Bless them. But no, that's amazing, mate. But thanks for coming on today. We will drop the link for the Just Giving in the notes below. You're an inspiration, brother. I will be messaging you constantly with lots of stupid messages. I'll probably break down in tears to you at some point, thinking I can't do it, and everyone's going to laugh at me. But I really appreciate it, mate. Send so much love to the good lady, and I can't wait to see you soon.
I will do. Thank you so much for the time, and 10 months from now, you'll smash it.
Can't wait, brother.
You'll have it smashed.
I'll see you soon.
Take it easy. Bye.
Boom. There you have it, boys and girls. That was my chat with Charlie Thompson, soon to be Guinness World Record holder. He's done the hard work. The fates now sit in the hands of Guinness World Records. And it was kind of like a little mini podcast release at the end of that episode there. You heard myself speaking about a Guinness World Record challenge that I am preparing for. This one's going to be super, super difficult. Now, Charlie's, of course, was equally difficult. And anybody that tries to push themselves mentally, physically, goes and tries to do something that either nobody else has done before, or they want to go further, harder, faster, bigger, wider than anyone else who has come before them, I take my hat off to you. I'm going to be preparing for this event for maybe the next 10 to 12 months, trying to raise as much money as possible for the Firefighters charity and maybe one or two others. If you know a business that wants to get involved, we will be having sponsorship on the vehicle itself. We've got a whole bunch of people involved in supporting this event. If you want to be part of it, if you know someone that wants to be part of it, if you've got any advice for me, then get in touch with the podcast over on one of our social media platforms or via the email. Everything is in the notes below. So until next time, stay happy, stay healthy, stay hungry, and I look forward to seeing you again real soon right here on the Firefighters Podcast.